Good morning, class. This is Mr. Herring, and I'm going to do a little review from the main points from last lecture that I hoped you got on the drawing, and then hopefully this will help you out with today's lecture as well. Okay, so there's two main functions of the digestive system that I want you guys to really focus in on, and that is, number one is breakdown, and number two is absorption, or to absorb what you have broken down. Okay, let's start with breakdown though. So breakdown really, when you eat, even though you're grinding things up, you're eating things, and at the molecular level, it's very big. And we need to be able to make them so that they're smaller. So we have to take large molecules and turn them into smaller molecules. So what are the large molecules that we eat? Well, when we look at the molecular level, we're looking at proteins, lipids, carbos, and nucleic acids. All right, so proteins are broken down into their small molecules, which is amino acids. Lipids go to both what's called fatty acids and glycerol. Carbos go to monosaccharides, which are like glucose. And nucleic acids go to something called nucleotides. All right, so that leads us into absorption, because in the small intestine, and actually this is a picture of it right here, in the small intestine are these little bumps, and that's where absorption takes place, on those little bumps called villi. And what happens is that the large molecules can't get into the little cracks into the villi, which the blood is right underneath the villi, so they can't absorb into our bloodstream. But the small molecules, once they're broken down, the amino acids, the monosaccharides can sneak in, and they can get into our bloodstream. So our first function is breakdown, our second function absorption, and that's what the two main functions of the digestive system is to break the large molecules to small molecules and then absorb those small molecules. Now there's two types of digestion, or two types of breakdown, and the first one is physical, and they also call it mechanical. And physical digestion is like the grinding of the teeth or the moving of your stomach. So, and a great example is the teeth. We can all imagine our teeth grinding things into smaller pieces. And the next type is chemical. And in your notes last class, I wanted you guys to start labeling what are the chemicals and where they're located. And so in just a second, I'm going to show you those on that same picture, just so that you guys have a good idea of what the chemicals are and where they're located. All right, the first place where chemical digestion takes place is in the mouth. And inside your saliva, so saliva's job is to kind of moisten the food, just like you'd put water in dirt if you want to dig and it's easier to dig. Moisten the food and clump it together. But inside the mouth, inside the saliva, you have a chemical, an enzyme called amylase. And what I want you guys to do is always know the chemical and then know what it breaks down. And amylase breaks down carbos. It actually breaks down carbohydrates into disaccharides, but that's most of the work. The rest of it will be done in the small intestines. So after the mouth, it goes down the esophagus, D, down into the stomach, which is J. And the stomach is the next place where chemical digestion takes place. And the stomach produces acid and pepsin. And both acid and pepsin break down proteins. Again, they might not break them completely down. The rest of it's done in the small intestine, but it breaks it down pretty close, maybe to 2 amino acid lengths. Okay, and then finally, the third place where things are broken down is the small intestine. And the small intestine breaks down all of them. And the chemicals that are used by the small intestine would be like lipase. There's another amylase. It's pancreatic amylase that occurs here. amylase. I gotta spell correctly here, guys. Amylase. There's trypsin. There are nucleotidase. These are just a few. And of course, lipase is lipids. Amylase, again, carbos. Trypsin is proteins. And nucleotidase is nucleic acids. So you can see that everything in the small intestine gets broken down. And now we've really broken it down into the single monomers. The next place that actually doesn't get broken down in, but it actually produces a chemical that breaks it down. There's two of them. The first one is the liver. And the liver produces something called bile. And bile breaks down lipids. The bile is actually stored in what's called the gallbladder. And that is injected into the small intestine. Over here, underneath the stomach, is the pancreas. And the pancreas, like we said, produces and injects into the small intestine at least those four, and there's probably other ones. Finally, to finish this off, I just want to show you that there are different parts of the small intestine. It's not just one part. And so the different parts are, one thing I had you guys take in your notes was I wanted you guys to know the different parts of the organs. And so there's two organs I want to focus on, and that's the small intestine. And the three parts are, the first part being the duodenum. And the duodenum is where major breakdown is finished and the majority absorption takes place. The next section is called the jejunum. It's the middle part. And then the last part is the ileum. And this connects to the large intestine. Actually, the ileocecal valve is a little valve right there, right at H and close to the appendix, which is I. And that's where the small and the large intestines meet. Small intestines in a human is about 22 feet, so it's pretty long. Large intestine has a few more parts. It has, and they're called colons. And the first part, after it meets the ileum, is the ascending colon. It's going up. So let's see. We're going to do it in green. So the ascending colon is right there. Okay, and then the next part is called the transverse colon. Oops. And the transverse colon is going across. And then the next section is the descending colon. The descending colon. And the descending colon is right there. And then the final segment is called the sigmoid colon. And I think a sigmoid, it has like an S. So I'm going to make it a little smaller there. So it's kind of like that little curve right there. And then finally you reach the rectum and anus. The rectum stores the feces, the anus releases it. Large intestine mostly is involved with absorbing water. And they always say vitamin K, so it helps produce vitamin K. It's one of the things you need. Okay, those are the main parts. I hope you have other parts labeled, but those are the main parts and where the main juices or the main chemicals are located and what they actually digest. Hopefully this will help you on today's lesson, and then we will go from there. All right, thank you.